I want to, as always, welcome all of you to yet another Photobook Show with Stefan Frank. This is our 19th episode. Thank you so much, Stefan, for doing this again. And as I mentioned already, this is our holiday special. So Stefan will look back at his favorite books from 2024. They're not all new books, but basically he's showing his favorite books from this past year. And the talk will be about an hour, Stefan, is that correct? Something like that?
As always, yes.
As always, okay.
Same procedure as last year.
Wonderful, wonderful. Welcome to all of you to yet another Photobook Show, and thank you so much, Stefan, for doing this. And also one more thing, the list of books that Stefan will show today, we will send them to you. It's a long list, and we will send them to you in an email. So everybody who is here today will receive this email with the list. So I'm not going to post this into the chat. All right, Stefan, I'm turning it over to you now. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Anna, for the introduction, and thank you everybody for showing up here today to get all of us into some kind of a holiday mood. Yeah, when I started out preparing for this, I thought about my year, and I had some thoughts put together, and I will just let me just jump in right away here and share my screen with you. All right, ich packe meine Bibliothek aus. Unpacking my library. I want to make some notes on the photo books in 2024. So unpacking my library, this was the title of an essay by Walter Benjamin. And let me start by saying the guy I read probably the most this year was, once again, Walter Benjamin. This is something that I always seem to come back to. He is very central to my understanding of arts, media, life. He's my favorite German author. So if you're looking for an excuse to learn German, he wrote some of the best prose that you can read in German. So he's an excellent. He was an excellent thinker, but he was also an excellent writer. So he wrote this essay, Unpacking My Library, in 1931. And in the essay, he's talking about his intimate relationship that he has to his library, how he connects with his books, how the books become his second home, and how he constructed his library. And this library that he constructed is this combination of chaos of walking over the street and walking into a used bookshop and being fascinated by a book that you find there. So some chaos in there, but also some order and some passion that leads you from one book to another. And he talks about how he makes up an intimate connection with every book that he has in his library, and how he immediately feels at home when he starts unpacking his library. And this is another interesting thing about Benjamin. Benjamin was restless due to the circumstances in which he lived, and he had to move a lot of places. But he took his home always with him, because he took all his books with him. And this is my understanding of my library here. I totally realized that it has gotten a little bit out of hands last year. So I bought way too many books, and I read too many books, and probably have to look at the static of our flat here, because we stored too much of that. But still, they are very close to me. So what I will try to do today is not show you the books that came out this year, but the encounters that are made this year with books, and the encounters that stuck with me this year. So as Anja already mentioned, most of the books were not published this year. I just happened to stumble over them this year. He also said this, the existence of the collector is thus dialectically stretched between the poles of disorder and order. So you will here encounter today a lot of disorder. And I try to talk a little bit about why I think there is still a little bit order left here. The essay, let's start with the first book. This is Illuminations. This was edited by Hannah Arendt, another author that Benjamin encountered by chance in Portbou in Spain, where he was fleeing from the Nazis. So he was Jewish, and he had to flee from Germany. And they met by chance. And Hannah Arendt was fascinated by him, by his work. She escaped and got to America eventually. Walter Benjamin did not make it out, so he killed himself before the Nazis could get to him. So this formed an accidental bond that is somehow a picture how the migration was in the 30s. And she afterwards read everything by Benjamin and was responsible for publishing the collected works of Walter Benjamin. And one of this collection of essays that contain this, I'm unpacking my library, is Illuminations here. Wonderful book, highly recommended. But it just doesn't matter. Just take something from Benjamin. It's all good. So my question for this was, how was your year? How was my photo year? My photo year was pretty much controlled by the things I've been teaching. I've been teaching, newly teaching 2 courses on surrealism and landscape. So these were the drivers. My teaching is always connected to what I'm doing as a photographer. So all these 3 things, the things I read, the things I teach, the things I photograph, all this is connected. And this is something that you will also, that I can also find in the books that I picked for this year. So as I said, it will be somewhere between order and disorder. And I want to start by talking a little bit about how I perceive the current photo book scene. And let's start with this. We talked a lot about the artistic side of the photo book. Let's take this moment to talk about the other side of the photo book. A lot of things have to do with money, and money has been something that is currently on every publisher's, on every photographer's mind who buys photo books and who makes photo books, because this has this, to be honest, has gotten worse in this year. A good example is this. This is called Tempo. This is a new book by Guido Guidi. I'm saving up my accounts to buy this book. So this is how books, this is what books by Mac now usually cost. They come in around 100. This one is a little bit thicker. It's a completely edited work, comes in around 130 euros, which is pretty much the same amount in dollars. So the prices for the photo books have increased. That has a lot of reasons. That has a reason that paper has been increased in price. That has a reason that energy has increased in price. And there is a general inflation, which pretty much affects everybody. It affects the publishers, but it also affects the photographers who do their work. So prices have gone significantly up in the past year. At some points it's gotten crazy. So Mac has started hoarding some of their books. This is Transparency, small camera works that came out a couple of years ago. It turned out that they have stocked some of their books, and now they start selling them at an increased price. So good for me, because I bought this 2 years ago when it was still available for 60 euros. So, but this kind of policies where publishers are hoarding books and making special editions that are even more expensive than the usual edition. Price hike just across the board. This has been going on for some time now. What you can also see is the results of that. The result of that is that a lot of the independent publishers that you see out there, they're struggling. This is, for example, SPBH editions that was previously self-published Be Happy, because they were very proud that they were offering tools for photographers to self-publish their work. And yeah, I have no idea how to view this properly. Did they sell out? Did they achieve a deal with Mac that allows them to be longer in business? At least they're not self-publishing anymore, because Mac is publishing their books now. So this is what you can see across the board. So the smaller publishers, they currently all seem to struggle. That has something to do with a price hike, that the smaller publishers can't put these price hikes to their customers. They usually have smaller print runs where these increases in price are more, you can feel them easier. Another trend that you see on Mac is that they are selling non-photography books. So they have this joint venture with A24, which is a movie company. So they are making books that accompany their movies. So also something that you can see with some publishers there, that they try to reach different target audiences with their books and get out of the photographic bubble here. Sometimes it gets crazy, like this thing here. This is the artist book special edition. That is a special edition of the artist book by Francesca Woodman that sells for 2,400 euros, which places it firmly out of reach of mere mortals. I'm just mentioning all these facts because, of course, this has also implications for pretty much everybody. The economic situation of photographers that hasn't increased very much over the years. So a lot of the photographers still work in precarious financial situations. So they certainly will not be able to afford these kinds of books. So there is an element that skews this photo book movement away from a democratic access to photo books. The money is a hurdle that a lot of people will not be able to make. Already mentioned this. This, of course, has implications for affects smaller publishers different than it affects larger publishers like Mac. This is a nice example here. So at the beginning of the year, Void, a company that I've mentioned probably mentioned a couple of times, they have made up a joint venture with Yorgos Lanthimos, the director, for his book, to accompany his movie. I forgot the name of the movie. For one of his movies. They brought out this book because they knew him, because he's also from Essen, so they are connected over being in the same circles. So they did this book together with Yorgos Lanthimos and sold it very good. And the second book that came out of this was done by Mac afterwards, because Yorgos Lanthimos is part of A24. So the next book, the next movie that he made with A24. So I Shall These Things Sing These Songs Beautifully, came out with Mac. So this is, if you look at the calculation that these smaller publishers have, they always make a calculation that they have smaller runs of more experimental work, and they have runs of more mainstream work, like Yorgos Lanthimos, because of his success in the cinema. You have a higher run of this book. They always try to finance the other books with that. And if suddenly a company like Mac acquires this, and this, of course, affects the business model of these smaller publishers. So the weird thing about this is if you talk to Void, they are extremely busy. So they are, although they are struggling financially to make ends meet, they make a lot of books. So when you look at the number of copies they do, they usually run copies, run 300 to 500 copies, which is not a lot, which is barely the minimum that you where it pays off to print as offset. Compare this with publications by Mac, they usually run much larger numbers of copies. So Void somehow has to make up for this by making a lot of books. And you see this when you look at the current program of Void, that they pump out an endless number of books currently, but all these books only run a small number of copies. I'm mentioning this because there's currently a lot of talk about this in the scene. This is from a rant by Brett Feuerham on the state of workshops in 2024. There are a lot of workshops out there that where you also pay a lot of money, and they do that basically for the money. This is we can't lie about this. Anya and I and Edward, we're all in it, not only for the money, because there are certainly other ways to get rich. So it's no one gets rich in this business, but there are levels to this. And there was a lot of talk about this, how different workshops approach this currently, because everybody is trying to make ends meet, and but it's getting to a point where it starts getting crazy. Just want to mention this. If you look at the admission price for something like the Chico review, they have an enormous, they charge an enormous amount. And as I mentioned it with the photobook, this also gets to the point where it excludes a lot of photographers that will not be able to afford these kinds of workshops. And this, of course, is a problem for every workshops, because the money is a filter that you cannot avoid. Also want to mention the state of the award scene. This is from the Deutsche Photobuchpreis. They're also charging for sending in your publication. So if you made a publication and you want to enter it in the Deutsche Photobuchpreis, which is a pretty famous competition here in Germany, they charge you 90 euros for the first title, and you have no idea what comes out of this. The whole process behind it is very intransparent, and it becomes weird when you look at the number of medals they give out. So in the end, there are 60 medals that they award. So pretty much every book that has been sent in gets a medal in one way or another. So this is a point where these kinds of awards start getting a little bit crazy, and these prices of submission start to become part of their business model. As I mentioned, they have 60 awards, so there is pretty much for every category that you see here, you have an enormous number of books to choose from that were price-worthy in this year. As I mentioned, this photographers are usually in a precarious financial situation, which makes us also easy to exploit. I just want to mention this. This is the Vonovia Award for photography, a famous photography prize in Germany. The interesting, this is one of the few prizes. This is one of the few awards that do not that actually pay out something. So you get an actual reward that is a relevant amount of money that allows you to do projects. The interesting thing about this, the jury is mostly people from Berlin. So are the people that participate in these awards. And Vonovia is notorious in Berlin because Vonovia is in Germany a huge housing company, and they have a atrocious business model to squeeze money out of the German housing market. So when they have an award like this that tells nice home stories by good photographers, this is a cheap way, a very cheap way for them to polish up their image and deflect from the lots of bad news that come out of them. When I read this and I read at the awards of this, I was reminded of this book. This is by Basalia, Foucault, Chomsky. They are talking about pacification crimes, about the subservience of intellectuals. And we have to understand that this precarious financial situation also makes us vulnerable for these kinds of, yeah, I understand that Vonovia is a scumbag organization, but I send in my pictures anyway because I need the money. It's a difficult situation for pretty much everybody who is involved here. One way to battle this, I think when you look at doing workshops in this day and age, you have to look if the workshop provider offers some kind of scholarships, because everybody who is in this business right now should be aware that it's our responsibility to battle these financial inequalities that get increasingly bad. Of course, I want to mention this, Strudel Media, thanks to Heather Matera, they offer these scholarship opportunities. Also want to mention workshops from Nearest Truth from Brett Fire, who I already mentioned. He is pretty well connected in the photographic scene, and he knows about the difficulties of paying for these kinds of workshops. He's doing these year-long photo book courses. Everybody has expenses. The lights have to be kept on anyway, so he has to take money, of course, but he's also offering different ways to pay for that. So I just want to remind everybody that we have to be mindful, not only when we talk about diversity, financial diversity is as important for the photo book world as it is gender and race diversity. Another trend that I mentioned, that I noticed in last year, I noted this basically on me, but I also noticed this on a lot of people that I talked about, due to the fact that there are so many books coming out. I don't think that we are now at a historic situation where there are more photo books coming out every year than ever before. It is damn easy to make a photo book, and pretty much everybody you talk to makes photo books right now. And this puts an enormous amount of pressure on pretty much everybody, on the publishers, on the people looking at photo books, on the people buying photo books. I am seriously at a loss to get a halfway decent overview of how the year was, what was published here. And that induces a lot of fatigue. So I've been to Paris Photo this week, and it was just a freak show. It was as crowded as it was never before. So it was really crazy there. This picture, of course, I just want to point this out. This was from San Meninich, wonderful exhibition in the CO in Berlin. This is pretty much the output that the internet produces in images in a day, printed out and just dumped into the foyer of the exhibition. Some of this has to do with changes with technical advantages. I just show you how most books are printed today. This is the Hewlett Packard Indigo. This is a digital printing machine. This is what makes it possible to make print runs of one, like you can do with publishers like Blurb, for example. This is made possible by the advances in digital printing. When you talk to Steidl, or when you talk to the people at Void, they still say, yeah, you can see that and you can feel that when it is offset printed. There is still a quality difference, but in fact, most of the photographers that do photo books today, especially when you do print runs of 50 or 100, this is now possible due to digital printing. And if you look at the quality that these machines produce today, they are pretty much on the level where offset was a couple of years ago. So this is one of the technical drivers for this inflation in photo books. And together with this inflation, there is this, hey, create your photo book in less than 10 minutes, or how I made 3 photo books in 4 hours. So there is a lot of pressure to rush into making your photo books. This is, of course, the commercial side of making photo books, but there's also a lot of pressure on actual photographers to rush their photo books. And if you look at a lot of publications today, sometimes you see that rush. You see that people go to print before they actually finish. I don't know why we need to make photo books in under 10 minutes. I have no idea why this is so important, but this is how the marketing speak of this works. And this pretty much turns photo book making into something like this, into something like an assembly plan. This is from the Dearborn assembly plan from the Ford works, Ford in Detroit in 1954. It's how photo books are produced today, just like this. Everybody is affected by this. If you look at the current program of Void, this is what they have. And this is very different from what they had a year ago. So they pumped out an enormous number of books in the last year. And I love Void, and I've purchased a lot of the books of that. And even I feel that their quality has dropped significantly. So I think they also feel the pressure here. Another reason for this fatigue is probably that we're all tired of how the last year went anyway, not in the photo book, but in the rest of the world. There is, when you listen to how people talk about this currently, there's also some kind of fatigue on the last trends of the photo book, like identity. There were the past few years were governed in the photo book by bringing people into visibility that were not seen before. This whole idea of portraying marginalized group, like this here famous, fantastic, great project by Sanile Moholi, Faces and Faces. She photographed the LGBTQ community in South Africa. At that point, a community that was where pretty much nobody knew that this was actually existing. And even the South African government denied that there is such a scene. But of course, there is such a scene. So it was very important at that time. But look at the time there in 2006 to make this kind of project. And it's a fantastic project. It's fantastic portrait photography. And this is what came out of this. So she continued, Sanile Moholi continued to making portraits, portraying the people that she interacted with. But you already know that this kind of diversity has become some kind of a token. So even in Netflix, they have this undocumented policies, that there is a certain level of diversity they have to show in their productions. It doesn't matter if the story holds up to it or not. They have to do it, and this is sometimes this ends up with slightly ridiculous stories for that. This is not so much about actually caring about the people that have been excluded from society. This is just some form of marketing that helps Netflix or Amazon to market their products. Of course, Disney has gotten a lot of heat for this. This is a picture that came out last year. The Marvels, that has this, that Disney is some of the flagship of companies that got a lot of critique for these kinds of tokenization of diversity and of identity politics. And the line of critique always follows the same pattern. The company says you are misogynist if you criticize this movie, and the critics of the movie just say, yeah, we don't have anything against strong female characters, but the story was just horrendously bad. And of course, both things are true at the same time. People that say that have something against strong female characters in movies, especially in superhero movies, and the story was really bad. And this is a trend, this identity politics. This is something that has governed the photo books the past few years. There is an enormous amount of books that came out with this topic, showing, giving people a voice that haven't had a voice in photography, and making the photography world aware of their exclusions, of their blind spot that they had. And the books that came out of this, I just want to mention Zanele Muholi again, because she's still working on this. And if you look at her work, she's just pumping out super strong books pretty much every year. And this are just two categories that have nothing to do with each other. You can make a book on identity and be lame. And you can also make a book on identity and make a super strong book. Currently, it seems a little bit like we're already in the backlash of that. As everybody seems to be tired of this identity politics and is lamenting that, haven't we done enough for that? We're already in the backlash. And there is, I just want to mention this report from that came out in Germany a couple of days ago, that crime against women and girls has increased in pretty much every area in Germany. So while the public perception is that we should, maybe we have done enough and we should abandon these identity projects, the truth says the completely opposite. We're not done yet. Violence against women and girls rises in all areas, almost one femicide a day. So we haven't achieved anything here. And it's getting worse. So this is a backlash. So this is Nicolas Fuentes, who said, "Your body, my choice forever." He said that right after the election. So while everybody seems to be tired of these identity projects, which is understandably, as there are a lot of tokenized and lame projects that come out, I would urge everybody not to stop with that. But I wanted to be, this was just some general remarks. I just wanted to be more personal. So I'll get back to my regular program. So how was my year? My year was chaotic. So I'm struggling, and you will see this in the books that I show. I struggle between these two poles, this nowness, this idea, I'm living today. And I should look at the books that come out today and be aware of how the world looks right now. And on the other hand, this is the other pole that affects all of us. we are at a place and time where we can look at every picture ever taken. How wonderful, marvelous it is, and how there is an endless amount of pictures that I have not yet seen that have been taken 100 years ago, 50 years ago, 30 years ago, or even 2 years ago. So I want to start with Arno Schmidt, German writer. Wenn ein neues Buch erscheint, liest du ein altes. So when a new book comes out, you read an old one. So with that being said, let me jump into this one here. My loose recommendation list of books, and let me start with this one. So although I'm criticizing Mac a lot, I'm reading a lot of Mac books, although I'm very critical about them. So this is something that came out already in 22, but I just encountered it this year because I had such an urge to read Benjamin again. And this is a book by Victor Bergin, who reread this one, the artwork in the age of its technical reproducibility. And this is a really small book, but it's still wonderful. I wished that Mac had included the essay he's referring to in here and not just assume that everybody already had it. But although it is very short, it's really a strong essay on rereading Benjamin and making him live for people today. So can recommend both. So you will find this as open source because there is no copyright on this anymore, and you will find this on Mac together with some other books by Victor Bergin, which I also can highly recommend. Which brings me to this other pile of books here. As I already mentioned, I've been teaching a lot of surrealism today, so I could easily always recommend Rosalind Krauss every day because I love her endlessly. This is the optical unconscious. This is the basis for the course we've been doing now. There's also, of course, an English original of this. Also can recommend pretty much every book of her, but I do not want to do this because I haven't met her this year, but 2 years ago. So what I instead want to recommend is David Bate. This is a wonderful book on photography and surrealism. In contrast to Rosalind Krauss, who is pretty much working from the inside of the art world, or from the inside of surrealism, and goes from there into the outside to make us understand how surrealism functions. David Bates is looking at the social context of surrealism, which makes it fascinating to read. So he has this chapters on the Oriental signifier, so in Orientalism, which was something that was very prevalent during the 20s when surrealism was at its height. He has something on the influences of colonialism. So what was the political standing of the surrealists? So I can highly recommend this. Has great source material, has great ideas, great descriptions of artworks in here, so highly recommended. Which is already number 2. You see that I'm going through this very quickly today. Let me get to this one because this one is very, very dear to me. I ignored Francesca Woodman because I was appalled by the way she was marketed and portrayed. I do not know if you know the story of Francesca Woodman. She had a very, very short, tragically shortcut career. So she photographed for around 5 years, from 16 to 22. before she killed herself. And this tragic event that she killed herself, her depression, this is pretty much what dominates the way she is marketed. She was this obviously very beautiful young woman with this tragic death, and every story that you read about her, every photo book that you read about her, leaned into this kind of story around her. And this makes you look at the pictures differently. You're always looking at the pictures with the question, why did she do it? Why did she kill herself? And this is a very subtle way of dismissing how great the pictures are, how great she was as a photographer, how well taught in all kinds of art history she was, how she was referring in her books, in her images, to pictures from the Surrealists, pictures of the classic Italy in which she made a lot of her pictures. Her inventiveness, her way to form a frame, her picking up of historic pictures. She was an overall fantastic photographer, and this the way she was marketed for a long time. That was really put me off on that, and I needed some time to get into her and understand her. And I just want to mention here two things here. As I've already mentioned, the artist books of her, which Mac is republishing now. There is a wonderful essay that I will send you in the link by Alison Dunhill, Dialogues with Diagrams, on some disordered interior geometries, an artist book that Francesca Woodman did a year before she died. And Alison Dunhill takes the work to precisely analyze the photo book, and precisely analyzes her formal qualities. And this is really an eye-opener for me. And I probably needed that to understand how great Francesca Woodman was. And this is the way she was, her photo books are marketed before. This is a tiny facsimile print that was given out of her. This is pretty much what you can imagine when you look at the work that Mac has done with that. There is also a book by Mac on that, and I strongly urge you, if you want to get into the work of Francesca Woodman, to look at these books here first and read some of the analysis on these books first, because these are the only books that have some kind of merit to them. They have some kind of this was her idea of how she wanted to be seen, how she wanted to express herself. In contrast to something like this here that was just thrown together by someone who was exhibiting her work. So I want to highly recommend this of her. This is a portrait of a reputation. This, wish I would have known this a little bit better before. This is a book that contains a lot of her images, but a lot of her postcards. So that gives you some background of all this and makes you understand her picture making better. Not essentially why she killed herself better, but why she made the pictures in the way that she did. Which I think is, if you want to look at her work, this is, I think, the important thing about her. Which brings me to number 4. This is I probably pronounced that bad. So this is one of the few larger books by Lucas Blaylock. We already had him because we talked about this one here, about why must the mounted messenger be mounted, a book where he basically explains us his picture making. And Lucas Blaylock is an exhibition photographer. So his photographs, as you see here, they are meant to have a certain size and be exhibited in an exhibition as a certain size, as you see here. And this is how he thinks. He does not think as a photograph as something that has an indefinite size and you can just put it in the book in this size and put it on the wall in that size. No, for him, every picture has a certain size, which makes it very hard for him to make photo books, because here everything is skewed in the way that pictures come together that do not belong together. Pictures are shown in sizes that they should not have. But this is as close as it gets. So this is or. I probably have to show you what or actually means. So highly recommended. And this is probably something that you will not find. I just mention it here in the idea of chaos and disorder. He is mentioning Magritte and especially La Période Vache. And you see that you see a lot of connections between this book, the work of René Magritte, his late work that probably nobody knows, and his work here. Brings us to continue with order. I seem to have been looking at more painterly work than ever. So a lot of the books that I'm looking at have nothing to do with the flow of a photo book. They are basically catalogs. We already talked about James White and Buddies. So this is one of my recommendations. So I met him this year because I got this book out of a used bookstore. It's already older, but this is evidence, is something that actually came out this year. This is a work that is based on Mike Mandel's and Larry Sultan's work, Evidence, and uses the usual James White interventions into the picture here. So I like this book more because I just like the pictures more. That was really an eye-opener. I just want to point you to, I don't know, it was Photobook Show 18 where I spoke at length about him. Which brings us to this one. I think we had an extra show just on the works of Junjin Lee. I just want to reiterate on that. So this is just fantastic work. Korean photographer Junjin Lee, she's mainly working in landscape photography, and she makes this strong black and white, silent, quiet, wonderful images. Junjin Lee.
Junjin Lee.
But don't worry, we will send out her links to her books in the show notes.
Thank you, Stefan.
This one came out this year, but I think even for this year, Unnamed Road is more important and more relevant. And I also like it. I like the book more, if you can like a book like this, because this is her work on Palestine. She made a visit to Palestine in 2016, I guess, and this is the book that came out of this. And this is tragically current, especially in the way that she is not talking about the violence of the conflict. None of her pictures are violent, but she still makes a point of describing the place without being overly demonstrative about it. So it's a fantastic book and tragically current right now. So these were all photo books. I just want to show you some of the other books. I just want to point out Fitzcarraldo editions. I have met Fitzcarraldo editions, which is a small British publisher, right? They publish all kinds of books. It's not only photo books. I just want to point out this here, Moira Davey index cards, which you probably see all the time here because we're using the same kind of principle every time, writing stuff on index cards, shuffling index cards around. And this is a wonderful book because she talks about how she produces her essays with these index cards. And she uses these index cards as a way to talk about how her thoughts form, how they take up connections. And the essay that she has range from dealing with her own work as a filmmaker, as a photographer, but she also talks about the work of other writers like Mary Stone Woolcraft, for example. Wonderful book here. But just wanted to point out, it doesn't matter which book you pick from Fitzcarraldo editions, they are all good. If you're interested in Fassbinder, try Ian Penman's Fassbinder Thousands of Mirrors. Also wonderful. But pretty much everyone by Fitzcarraldo works. And let me quickly rush through the last few of them. This did not come out this year. I just met this year. And this changed the way that I looked at Eggleston. My understanding of Eggleston is this. So this is pretty much the book that you all know. This is William Eggleston's guide. The book that came out accompanying his initial show in the MoMA. And this is, of course, a legendary book. A legendary exhibition, and this is how we know Eggleston. This here is something that accompanied the Outlands. So this was a show that toured, as I understand it, through America and even made a short stop here in Berlin. That was last year, I guess. And this was the first time that Eggleston's pictures were shown in a different way. So we know him when he's also shown this way in an exhibition with this large white border around it, expensive frames around it, but the prints were pretty smallish, as is the book. And the book is very standard, classical, 70s photo book. But this is different. Immediately when you open it up, you see the size is different. It's printed different. It has full bleed. A lot of the pictures have full bleed. They do not have this white frame here. And suddenly Eggleston looks so fresh again. And the layout is changing all the time. It's different from how he is usually presented. You have these large images that go over the middle here. And this opened Eggleston to me in a very different way. And I felt the same in the exhibition, which had one room that was reserved for the Outland pictures. And suddenly I looked at his pictures not as documentary pictures, but as just pictures, interested in form, interested in shapes, in color. And this is really great book. Just want to show you some of these gorgeous combinations. It's in contrast to William Eggleston's guide, which I can't look through anymore because it's just so, yeah, it's also so boringly edited if you compare it. Suddenly here, everything looks fresh. It's freshly printed. And I do prefer this edition very much to the Steidl edition. So Steidl has this large, I don't know, it's 5 books for 1,200 euros, but they are smaller. and they are more conventionally printed. I like this edition much, much more here. So wonderful pickup, has nothing to do with this year, just has my personal interest this year.
Stefan, who did you say published that one?
This one is from
James and Hudson.
I'll look it up for you. I've forgotten it again. It was actually the gallery that organized it. This is the reason why I have forgotten them. So this is David Zwirner. So the gallery that organized the original show there. I don't know if anybody had the chance to see that in New York, because I think that was also started out in New York with David Zwirner. I will not talk about this anymore because I made a whole show about this. This is Trent Park's monument. This is actually something that came out of this year. This time capsule of black and white photographs of humanity. Basically, that's the topic.
Great.
What's our position in the universe? Where do we belong? Put everything in a capsule and send it out into space, so that if the Earth gets destroyed by one fate or another, the aliens will have something to look at, remember us.
Great.
So, and I want to end on, before I'm buried under my books here. I want to end up on this one here, because this is not actually a photo book, but this is a wonderful tome of a book. This is by Chris Ashworth. This gave this little show its title because it's called, don't know if you can read it properly, Disorder. So this is Disorder by Chris Ashworth. We had this Photobook show about David Carson, who was the designer behind the short-lived musical magazine Ray Gun. And Chris Ashworth was basically the designer that followed him. And he has been editing Ray Gun for over 15 years. And he's been assembling his work on Ray Gun. And he has the internet handle Swiss Grid. So this is the combination of his works. So he is making very controlled chaos. But his style is very physical. He's attacking the typo and the photographs he's using this. And this is just a treasure trove of layout ideas of how can you treat pictures, how can you treat typo, how can you attack the materiality of a magazine, a book, how can you deal with that? And this is just a wonderful collection of his work for about 30 years now. Contains his work on ray gun, contains his personal works. He makes these square artworks all the time. He's collecting type examples from all over the world. Let's see if I can show you some of it. He collects these wonderful type examples. Wherever he goes, he photographs the typo that he sees on billboards. So wonderful book, beautifully produced, and one of my findings of this year. And with this, I want to thank most of all Anya and Edward for organizing this, and all of you for showing up this year and listening to my rambling on the photo books here. So I enjoyed this year very much with you, and I enjoyed talking to you. Hope you also had a little fun here. And I just wish you Merry Xmas or whatever you want to do during the.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan. I didn't know you can draw. That's nice to see.
Well, you suddenly realize. So I'm very interested in painting, but I had to become a photographer because I'm really shitty at painting. So
Thank you so much, Stefan. Wow, that was great. That's a nice list of books. All right.
Thank you for being so inspiring. I can't follow everything. I don't even understand everything, but visually I'm sort of, I see it in a different kind of way. Like now when I turn and look at my room here, very, orderly, disorderly, I see it in a different way.
right.
So thank you very much.
I'm happy about that.
Does anybody want to hold up a book that you discovered in 2024?
I have one here.
Yes, Sheila,
Yes,
I'm going to
please.
spotlight you so that we can see you better.
right.
Okay.
Now, can you see the book?
Yes, hold it a little closer to you, away from yeah, and higher up. There you go. And what is it?
I got this yesterday. It was published by 89 Books, which I guess must be a small publisher. And I think I was alerted to it on the Instagram. It's done by a Ukrainian photographer whose name is Alexander Chekmanev. And what he did was document the life in Luhansk between 1994 and 98.
Huh.
I have to say, I have a great many photography books, and very few of them make me feel like I really understand what the life was like at that point in town, because it was the time in history when all the factories began to go out of business and there was
Wow.
just nothing. We're all very focused right now on what's going on there now, which would be a completely different photo representation.
Exactly. And when was this published? Was it published just recently?
He just published it. I just got it from Palermo.
Okay.
So published
Alright.
this year. Yeah.
All right. Very good. Thanks for showing that, Sheila. Sheila has been buying lots and lots and lots of books in 2024. So that is a good recommendation if this one is her most favorite one, because I know she has a lot of new ones at home.
Yeah,
Thank you, Sheila. Anybody else?
I'd
Victoria.
like to show you a book. I've been moving from New York to Paris, and most of the books I've given away, but this I keep, and sometimes at night I watch it. This is hold on. I don't even know how to. It's Ukraine, but before this war, the previous war, hold on. And I love the way it's, look at this. It's so,
Wow. Yeah.
Beautiful binding.
it's beautiful. I bought it in New York many years ago, and I don't quite, Kharkiv, September 2010 to September 13. And it has from the way it's put together, I think Germany, and then it has all these the photos. There's two guys, I can show you, and some are bleeding, and then there's a whole section of these, these Kiev. Yeah, this is 2014, and these are like this. They make you feel that you're right there. It's an extraordinary, and the paper is different. I don't quite know, like something like this, It's a wonderful book.
Very strong.
A very, very book.
It's a great format. I like it. I like it that it is big.
Yeah, I like it too that it's big. And you know, I kept some books, many that I know that can be bought, you know, I didn't keep, but this went to Finland with me, and here it is in Paris. So if you're visiting, we can have tea and you can look at the book. Thank you.
Sounds really good. Be careful. I
We'll
might
take you
show
up on that
up.
promise.
Hey, yeah, welcome anytime. Talk
Okay.
books, film, images, cameras.
Very good. Thank you, Victoria. Anybody else? Sam. Sam, let me spotlight you. You're still muted. Can you unmute? Sam, unmute. Unmute. Sam, unmute. You're muted. Thank you.
There you go.
Okay, so what's the book?
Okay, so the book is Guzzo. This is a lady that lives in our building.
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay.
She was initially an Ethiopian model that came here, became a director and filmmaker, documentary filmmaker, was the girlfriend of Tyler Perry, had his baby who lives in our building, but went back to Ethiopia. In addition to filming Tyler Perry's life that she did this fabulous book, which is
Wow. Okay.
one of the most interesting
Looks
ways of
fancy.
putting together photographs that I've seen, because rather than a book as a book where they're all connected, when you open the thing up, they're individual large pictures. And I think you just did a phenomenal job.
Oh, wow. Okay. Great.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're gorgeous. The
So
stuff,
they're almost like large zines within a book or sheets.
yeah,
Wow. Okay.
Wild.
and they're beautiful. I mean, they're just absolutely beautiful. But it was like a homage to her home and the
Mhm.
people that live there, etc. She went back to her old village, and I just think it's absolutely gorgeous piece of work. Just beautiful photographs,
Yeah.
incredible feeling of what Ethiopia must be like, where she was. Anyway,
Thank you, Sam.
Great. Great book. Now I'm very interested in your building here. So.
we've sort of become friends. She's amazing. She's gorgeous. I will say she's gorgeous. I can
Edward, is there something in the chat?
understand why it's interested.
Anybody else? Any other books to hold up? Edward, I think there's something in the chat, no? Isn't there? Edward, I don't hear you.
I don't see anything, but if you
Something
see
about
something,
Richard Avedon.
more just a comment.
I see. Okay.
Danny Lyons, bike riders. Yeah. Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
All right. Good. Well then, if there's no more book, I want to wish all of you, whatever you're celebrating, I will say Merry Christmas because that's what I celebrate, and happy holidays. And reach out if you have questions about classes. I hope that several more of you will send me a photo for our feature. Some of you already did. Thank you so much. We will start posting very soon. And have a very happy new year and see you in the new year. Thank you, Stefan.
Thank you to all.
Thank
of
you.
And
Thank
Stefan,
you.
My apologies for Sandy and I dropping out of your course. We're going to be in Vietnam for the last 2 sessions, and it didn't seem to make sense. Hopefully you'll do it again. I would love to take that course.
It's Things on Tables. 2 spots left because Sam and Sandy are not taking it.
Oh, okay. Sorry not to see you again.
Yes, but you will.
Yeah. Next
Have a good
time.
time in Vietnam, Sam, but I'll see you before. All right. Bye, everybody. Thank you so much
Bye.
for being here.
Thank you so much.
Bye, thank you.
Stefan. Thank you, Anya.
Thank
Thank you,
you, Victoria.
everybody. Seeing you. It's great.